All right, so today we are going like all in on Blorg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An artist whose music has like sparked some pretty interesting conversations online.
For sure.
But we're really going to dive deep today into their lyrics specifically. We've got 4 tracks pulled straight from their official YouTube music videos.
Yeah.
We're looking at Lardlad, MMK, Mousetrap, and My Swamp. And I think it's safe to say that it's not exactly
No.
top 40 radio material, but there is something
Definitely not.
undeniably captivating about it.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about Blorg's lyrics that, even
Yeah.
if they're not always super clear, that people find so intriguing?
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating, right? Like Blorg's not afraid to just get so real about the stuff that I think a lot of us think about but don't say out loud.
For sure.
And they do it in a way that's raw and unfiltered and often pretty intense.
Totally. And like Lardlad, for example, that song is like straight up aggressive right from the first line, talking about spinning the block with a finger blade, somebody bleeding out. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah. And just for those unfamiliar, like spinning the block essentially means like driving around a neighborhood, often with the intent to confront or even intimidate somebody. So right away, Blorg is putting us in this headspace, this world where violence feels imminent.
Yeah.
And the way that they use that gritty street slang alongside references to pop culture.
Yeah.
You know, like The Simpsons or Infinity Stones, it's like they're taking the familiar and twisting it into something darker, a little unsettling.
Yeah, it's like we have that aggression,
Yeah.
that darkness, but then they also drop in these lines that feel almost, I don't know, mundane, like an MMK, where they go from talking about drug use to like reminiscing about their school days. It's such a strange juxtaposition, and then that constant repetition of okay, it's almost haunting.
Yeah, the okay thing really stands out. Like, is it a genuine affirmation, or are they trying to convince themselves that everything's okay when it's clearly not? You know, it's like a mask that's hiding deeper anxieties or uncertainties. And I think that's where things get really interesting. Because suddenly we're not just listening to somebody boast or threaten. We're getting these glimpses of vulnerability, of like inner turmoil.
Yeah, I think that tension between the aggression and the vulnerability is something that I've noticed in a lot of Blorg's work. It's like they're constantly wrestling with these different sides of themselves.
Absolutely. And that struggle is something I think a lot of us can relate to, especially like in today's world, where we're bombarded with messages about success and happiness, while also feeling this underlying sense of anxiety and uncertainty.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to figure out where they fit in.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Mousetrap. This one feels a little different, right? It's got that like classic ambition and materialism vibe. You know, Blorg's talking about money reaching the top, but then there's this one line that's like running out of time, and it just feels almost philosophical.
Yeah, totally. It's like, boom, existential crisis.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of a song about getting rich.
Right.
You've got this drive for material success, but also this awareness that it might not be enough, that life is fleeting. Does that resonate with you at all?
Totally. I think it's like that classic struggle of wanting it all, but knowing that time is slipping away. It makes you think about what really matters.
For sure.
You know?
Exactly. It's like Blorg is making us confront these big questions about what we value, what we're chasing after,
Yeah.
and if it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah, and then we've got My Swamp, which is a whole other vibe. There's this shift in the imagery and this recurring donkey motif that's both intriguing and kind of weird. What's your take on that?
Yeah, the donkey is super interesting. You know, it's often seen as like stubborn, foolish, but also resilient, humble. It's like Blorg is, reclaiming the swamp, you know, that's often maligned environment, and making it their own, owning their unique space in the music world, imperfections and all.
I love that. It's like they're saying, this is me, take it or leave it. And I feel like it connects back to that tension we were talking about, the aggression and the vulnerability. Like they're not afraid to be themselves, even if it means embracing the messy, the unconventional.
Right, and that defiance, that willingness to be different, that's a huge part of what makes Blorg's music so compelling. You know, they're not trying to fit into any predefined box. They're creating their own.
So thinking about these 4 songs together, is there, I don't know, a sort of overarching philosophy or worldview that you see coming through?
I think one of the key things that runs through all of Blorg's work is the search for authenticity. Like in a world that's obsessed with image and status, Blorg seems to be grappling with what it means to be real, to be true to themselves, even if it's messy or contradictory.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I feel like it ties into that feeling of anxiety and uncertainty we talked about earlier. Like maybe part of what makes Blorg's music so relatable is that they're not afraid to express those feelings, to acknowledge that life isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
Absolutely. Like, they're not giving us easy answers.
Yeah.
Or sugarcoating anything. They're laying it all out there. The good, the bad, the ugly. And that rawness is what makes their music so powerful.
You know, going back to MMK for a second, there's that line, if I get to step in, I'm going to send them up to heaven, which is pretty dark.
Yeah.
But it also suggests this sense of power, like a refusal to be a victim.
Yeah, violence and aggression definitely come up a lot in Blorg's lyrics.
Yeah.
But it's never glorified. It's more like a reflection of the struggles that they're facing.
Right.
A way of asserting their presence in a world that can feel hostile or indifferent.
Right. It's like they're saying, I'm here, I'm not backing down, and I'm going to fight for what I believe in.
Yeah.
Even if that means getting a little rough around the edges.
Right. And that fighting spirit, that resilience, is ultimately a life-affirming impulse. It's a refusal to be silenced or to let the world dictate who they are.
It's interesting how they use language, too. Like, it's not always grammatically correct or even coherent, but it's definitely evocative. Like in Lard Lad, the line, we leave a mad graining, like, what does that even mean?
Right.
But it creates this sense of chaos, of destruction.
Yeah, Blorg really plays with words, bends and twists them to create these unique images and sensations. It's almost like a form of poetry, but stripped of any pretense or formality, raw and unpolished, just like their music.
So if we're thinking about Blorg's lyrics as this form of poetry, what message or insight do you think they're trying to convey through this unconventional style?
I think it goes back to that search for authenticity we talked about. You know, Blorg isn't concerned with following the rules or fitting into any predefined notions of what poetry or music should be. They're creating their own language, one that reflects their own unique perspective and experience.
And that's really what makes them stand out.
Right.
They're not afraid to be different, to challenge conventions, and to express themselves in a way that's true to who they are.
Exactly. And that's something I think we can all learn from. To embrace our individuality, to find our own voice, and to express ourselves authentically, even if it means going against the grain.
Okay, so we've talked about the aggression, the vulnerability, the search for authenticity, but there's also this recurring theme of material wealth and its limitations. It's like they're both drawn to it and repelled by it.
Totally. It's like they see the allure of money and status, but they also recognize that it's not the key to happiness or fulfillment. Like in Mousetrap, that line, running out of time, suggests this awareness that material pursuits can distract us from what truly matters.
Yeah, it's like they're grappling with that age-old question. What's it all for? Is it about accumulating wealth and possessions? Or is there something more to life?
And that's where my swamp comes in, right?
Yeah.
The swamp. It's like they're rejecting those conventional markers of success and embracing something more primal, more authentic.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, my swamp might not be glamorous, but it's mine. It's where I belong. And I'm not going to apologize for it.
And that's a powerful statement in a world that often tells us we need to be striving for more, for bigger, for better. Blorg is challenging those societal expectations and saying, what if contentment and fulfillment can be found in the unconventional, in the unexpected, in the places we least expect?
Yeah, it's like they're flipping the script on like what it means to be successful or happy. And, you know, I keep thinking back to that donkey in my swamp. It's such a powerful image. Like, is there more to unpack there? We talked about it as Blorg owning their unique space, but
Yeah.
could it also be like a commentary on society itself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, donkeys are often seen as like beasts of burden, right?
Yeah.
Carrying these heavy loads. And in a way, we're all carrying burdens in our own lives. Expectations, societal pressures, personal struggles. Maybe Blorg is using the donkey to represent that collective weight we all share.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about Blorg's individual journey, but also this shared human experience.
Yeah.
Of carrying burdens, facing challenges.
Yeah.
And by owning the swamp, they're saying it's okay to not have it all figured out, to embrace like the messy parts of ourselves and our lives.
Exactly. And that message of acceptance, of solidarity, it's so important in a world that can feel incredibly isolating and divisive. It's like they're saying, you know, we're all in this together, and it's okay to not be perfect, to be struggling, to be figuring things out as we go.
You know, I've never thought about Blorg's music in this way before. It's so much more layered and complex than I initially realized. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Blorg's lyrical landscape here, what would you say is like the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Blorg's music isn't just about catchy tunes or shocking lyrics. It's a reflection of the complexities of modern life, a tapestry of emotions, experiences, and struggles that speaks to the challenges and possibilities of our time.
Yeah, it's like they're holding up a mirror to society. and kind of forcing us to confront these uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. And even though their music can be dark, aggressive, even unsettling at times, there's also this underlying message of hope and resilience.
For sure. It's a reminder that even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, we can find strength in our shared humanity, in our imperfections, in our willingness to embrace the messy, beautiful complexity of life. And that's something worth celebrating, don't you think?
I couldn't agree more. Blorg's music is a challenge, a provocation, and ultimately a gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving. The more you listen, the more you discover. So to those of you listening, I encourage you to revisit Blorg's music with a fresh perspective. Pay attention to those layers of meaning hidden beneath the surface, and ask yourself, does Blorg offer a critique of modern society, or simply a reflection of it? That's a question we'll leave you to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Blorg.